What makes a speech great? It's not the words alone. It's not the stage, the lights, or even the applause. A great speech is one that shifts something inside us. It changes how we see ourselves, how we see others, and how we see the future. We remember great speeches not because they told us what to do, but because they gave us a reason why it matters. Today, I want to take you into the heart of one of the greatest speeches ever, not as an audience listening to words, but as leaders, dreamers, and human beings who long to be moved. This isn't just about history. It's about possibility. It's about discovering how words, when spoken with purpose, can ignite action, inspire change, and remind us of the very best of what we're capable of. So the question is not simply what was said. The real question is, why did it matter? And why does it still matter today? When we think about the speeches that truly move us, the ones that stay etched in our memory, it's never because they simply told us what to do. It's never because they handed us a list of instructions or pointed us toward a set of tasks. Great speeches transcend that. They touch something deeper. They remind us why we should care in the first place. They ignite a spark inside us that makes us want to act, not because we have to, but because we feel compelled to. That's the difference between words that fade and words that live forever. Think about it. When Martin Luther King Jr. stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, he didn't give us a 10-point plan or a strategy manual. He didn't lecture about logistics or policy. Instead, he spoke about a dream, a vision that awakened the hearts of millions. He didn't tell people what to do. He gave them a reason why they should keep going, why they should endure, why they should believe. That why resonated far beyond the moment, echoing across generations. That's the power of purpose-driven communication. The same is true in every area of life. Whether it's a leader addressing their team, a teacher inspiring students, or even a parent guiding their child, the greatest impact doesn't come from giving instructions. Impact comes from giving meaning. People don't rally around what you tell them to do. They rally when they understand the deeper reason, when they see themselves as part of something bigger than just the task in front of them. Great speeches remind us of that bigger picture. This is why we don't quote ordinary directions, but we do quote extraordinary vision. Nobody repeats the memo from a meeting, but they will repeat a line that stirs their soul. The words themselves may seem simple, but the clarity of purpose behind them makes them unforgettable. That is what makes a speech great. It doesn't simply transfer information, it transforms how people feel. And feelings are what drive action. Imagine standing in front of a room filled with people who are tired, discouraged, maybe even skeptical. If all you give them is instructions, they'll walk away unchanged. But if you remind them why their work matters, why their struggle has value, why their effort contributes to something greater, suddenly their posture shifts, their energy changes. They lean forward instead of leaning back. That's not because of what you told them to do. It's because of why you helped them believe it matters. History proves this again and again. Great leaders, great change makers, great speakers, they don't win people over by pushing the what. They inspire by pulling people into the why. And that's what gives words their lasting power. The truth is, most people know what needs to be done. They don't need another checklist. What they're hungry for is meaning. They're searching for hope, for clarity, for purpose. A great speech feeds that hunger. It lifts people beyond their immediate reality and shows them a vision of what could be. So when we ask ourselves what makes a speech great, the answer is not found in the details of what was said. It's found in the resonance of why it was said. Because when a speech taps into the universal longing for meaning, it doesn't just stay in the moment. It lives in the heart. Words alone can be forgotten. We hear thousands of them every single day through conversations, social media, news, and endless distractions. Most of them come in and out of our lives without leaving a trace. But when words are spoken with purpose, when they carry a weight deeper than the sound of syllables, they become unforgettable, Purpose is the difference between a line that's skimmed over and a line that gets etched into history. Words are powerful, but it is the why behind them that makes them endure. Think about the speeches you remember. It's not because they were filled with fancy vocabulary or clever phrases. What makes them stick is the clarity of the message and the heart behind it. Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address was less than 3 minutes long, yet it still echoes across time. Not because it was long, not because it was complicated, but because it connected to a deep truth about sacrifice, freedom, and the future. The words themselves were important, but the purpose behind them was what gave them life. When we speak without purpose, our words may fill the air, but they don't fill the soul. They pass through people's ears, but never reach their hearts. That's why so many speeches are forgotten the moment they end. But when someone speaks with conviction, with clarity of intention, those words take root. They create meaning. They spark belief. They awaken something within us that makes us not only listen, but remember. The greatest leaders understand this. They don't obsess over polishing every word. They focus on making sure their words are aligned with their values, their beliefs, and their vision. That's what makes them authentic. That's why when we hear someone speak from a place of truth, it resonates differently. We can feel the difference between a speech designed to impress and a speech designed to inspire. One is about ego, the other is about purpose. And it's purpose that leaves a lasting impact. Consider the difference between being told a fact and being given a reason. A fact might inform you, but a reason moves you. A fact might tell you what happened, but a reason tells you why it matters. For example, you can tell people about the struggles of building something meaningful, but if you connect that struggle to a higher cause, to the belief that every step forward contributes to a better world, suddenly people find energy they didn't know they had. That's what purpose does. It transforms ordinary words into extraordinary calls to action. We see this everywhere. In movements that reshape societies, in leaders who unite divided people, in everyday individuals who stand up for what they believe in. Their words may not be perfect, but they are purposeful. And purpose is magnetic. It draws people in, it gives them courage, and it helps them believe that what they do matters. That's why we don't just remember the content of their speeches. We remember how those speeches made us feel. Because feelings rooted in purpose linger long after the moment has passed. When we look back at the greatest speeches, what we admire is not only the beauty of the words, but the courage of the message. We admire the willingness to stand for something meaningful, to speak a truth that others needed to hear. That's why we carry those words forward. That's why they live on, not just in history books, but in the way we think, in the way we act, and in the way we dare to dream. When we think of leadership, it's easy to picture someone standing on a stage, delivering a powerful message to a crowd. But real leadership goes beyond speaking. A true leader doesn't just deliver a message, they inspire belief. And belief is what changes everything. A leader who tells people what to do may get compliance, but a leader who inspires belief creates commitment. It's the difference between someone showing up because they have to and someone showing up because they want to. Think about the leaders we admire most. They aren't always the loudest voices in the room or the ones with the most authority. They're the ones who speak with authenticity and conviction. They're the ones whose words reflect a deep alignment with their values. When they speak, we don't just hear information. We feel trust. We feel inspired to follow, not because we're told to, but because we believe in what they believe. When a leader delivers a message, it often centers on the what. Here's what we're doing. Here's what needs to happen. Here's what the plan looks like. And while clarity of the what is important, it isn't what moves people. What moves people is the why. Why are we doing this? Why does it matter? Why should I care? Leaders who focus on the why don't just inform people, they give them a cause to rally around. That cause becomes the foundation for belief. And when people believe, they go further. They sacrifice more. They overcome obstacles with greater resilience. Because belief fuels the human spirit in a way that instructions never can. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't inspire millions by saying, "Here's what we're going to do." He inspired them by painting a picture of a future worth believing in. His dream was not a plan. It was a vision. And that vision gave people the courage to act, even in the face of fear. The truth is, anyone can deliver a message. Anyone can stand in front of a group and read words off a page. But not everyone can inspire belief. That takes something deeper. It requires vulnerability, honesty, and an unwavering commitment to the truth you're speaking. People don't want perfection from their leaders. They want to feel that their leaders are human, that they care, and that their words come from a genuine place. When we sense that, belief follows naturally. This is why the greatest speeches are remembered not just for their content, but for their impact. It wasn't only the message. It was the belief that the speaker transferred into the hearts of the listeners. That belief becomes contagious. It spreads from one person to another, multiplying its power until it creates a movement. And that's what leadership is truly about, not managing people, not controlling outcomes, but inspiring belief strong enough to drive collective action. In our own lives, whether we're leading teams, families, or communities, the principle remains the same. We can either rely on authority to enforce actions, or we can cultivate belief to inspire them. One creates short-term results, the other creates long-lasting change. Because when people believe, they don't just act in the moment. They carry that belief into everything they do, long after the speech has ended. The greatest speeches don't belong to a single moment in time. They live far beyond the day they were spoken, carrying their impact across generations. That's what makes them timeless. They speak to values that are universal, values that do not fade with trends, politics, or changing circumstances. When a leader steps up and articulates those values with clarity, their words become more than speeches. They become part of the fabric of human history. Think about the speeches we still reference decades or even centuries later. They weren't simply addressing the issues of their time. They were speaking to something deeper, something that resonates with every human being no matter where or when they live. Freedom, equality, dignity, hope. These are not temporary ideas. They are eternal values. And when someone gives voice to them, their message continues to matter long after the context has changed. That's why when we read or listen to these speeches today, we still feel moved. Even if we weren't alive when they were delivered, even if we don't face the exact same struggles, we recognize the humanity in those words. We hear echoes of our own desires, our own struggles, our own dreams. The words are rooted in a time and place, but the meaning is universal. That's the difference between a good speech and a great one. A good speech addresses the present. A great speech transcends it. This timelessness is not achieved by chance. It comes from speaking with purpose and from aligning words with principles that never lose relevance. It's not about predicting the future or crafting perfect language. It's about tapping into what it means to be human. Because no matter how the world changes, people will always long for belonging, meaning, and hope. They will always crave fairness, justice, and opportunity. When a speech touches these truths, it becomes more than communication. It becomes a legacy. We can see this in the way these words are passed down. They're taught in classrooms. They're quoted in books. They're remembered in ceremonies. They show up in moments when people need courage or when societies need direction. Leaders turn to them for guidance, individuals turn to them for inspiration, and communities turn to them for unity. This is the ripple effect of timeless values expressed through powerful words. And it isn't only the famous speeches of history that carry this quality. Even in smaller settings, in companies, in schools, in families, words spoken with conviction and rooted in enduring principles can last far beyond the moment. A teacher's encouragement, a mentor's wisdom, or a leader's rallying call can echo in someone's life for decades. That's the hidden power of timeless speech. It doesn't require a global stage, it requires sincerity, clarity, and a connection to something greater than the individual. When we look back on history, what we truly admire about these speeches is not just their eloquence, but their courage. The courage to speak the truth. The courage to stand for values that others might dismiss. The courage to voice what people feel, but cannot always articulate themselves. That courage, combined with timeless values, is what makes words unforgettable. Great speeches remind us that while circumstances change, human values endure. They are a mirror reflecting not just who we are, but who we can be. And that is why they continue to inspire, generation after generation, reminding us of the best within ourselves and calling us to live up to it. When we think about real change, we often imagine big actions, major shifts, or bold strategies. But the truth is, change doesn't begin with instructions. It begins with inspiration. You can give people a checklist, a plan, even a step-by-step roadmap, but none of it matters unless they feel motivated to take that first step. Instructions inform the mind, but inspiration moves the heart. And it's the heart that drives us forward when things get tough. Think about the moments in your own life when you've taken bold action. Chances are, it wasn't because someone told you exactly what to do. It was because you believed in something. You felt pulled by a vision, a dream, or a cause that mattered to you. That belief gave you courage to act, even when the path wasn't clear. That's the role inspiration plays. It creates the spark that fuels persistence and creativity. Without it, even the most detailed instructions fall flat. History shows us this pattern again and again. When people are inspired, they rise above limitations. They endure hardships. They push past obstacles. Inspiration gives ordinary people extraordinary strength. The civil rights movement, for example, wasn't powered by instructions. It was powered by belief. Belief in equality, belief in dignity, belief in the possibility of a better future. Leaders gave people more than direction. They gave them inspiration that carried them through challenges no set of rules could have prepared them for. This is why the greatest speeches in history don't sound like instruction manuals. They sound like visions. They paint pictures of what could be, and they help us imagine ourselves in that future. That's what inspiration does. It doesn't tell us exactly how to get there, but it gives us a reason to begin. And once we begin, we find our way. Leaders who rely only on instructions might achieve short-term compliance, but leaders who inspire unlock long-term commitment. Compliance disappears the moment authority is gone. Commitment endures because it's rooted in belief. When people are inspired, they take ownership. They no longer need to be pushed because they're already pulled by something greater than themselves. That's why inspiration is the foundation of real, lasting change. In our daily lives, this applies just as much as it does on the world stage. A manager who inspires their team will see creativity, innovation, and resilience that no list of rules could ever produce. A parent who inspires their child will see growth and confidence that no strict set of instructions could guarantee. Inspiration is not about telling people what to do. It's about helping them see why it matters and what they are capable of becoming. We often underestimate how deeply human beings crave inspiration. People want to feel that their efforts count for something, that their lives have meaning, that their struggles are part of a bigger story. Instructions rarely give us that feeling, but inspiration does. Inspiration fills us with energy, with courage, with hope. And when people are filled with hope, there is very little they cannot accomplish. This is why we must remember that the starting point of change is not the what or the how. The starting point is always the why. Inspire people first, and they will find their way to the actions required. That is how movements are built, how progress is made, and how ordinary people rise to do extraordinary things. We remember great speeches not because of their structure, their length, or even their delivery. We remember them because they awaken the best within us. They remind us of who we are at our core and who we have the potential to be. They stir something in us that we can't always put into words, but we can feel it deeply. That feeling becomes a guiding force, pushing us to live differently, to act with courage, and to strive for something greater. When words awaken the best within us, they do more than motivate us in the moment. They become part of our identity. We carry them with us into the decisions we make, into the way we treat others, into the choices we take when no one is watching. They echo in our minds when we're unsure, and they strengthen us when we're afraid. That's why great speeches matter. They don't just give us something to think about, they give us something to live by. Consider the lines from history that have endured. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. I have a dream. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. These words have lasted not because of clever phrasing, but because they remind us of our higher selves. They call us to be more generous, more just, more compassionate, more courageous. They awaken the belief that we are capable of becoming the kind of people who live up to those ideals. This awakening is powerful because it shifts how we see ourselves. A great speech doesn't just describe a vision of the world. It invites us to see our role within it. It helps us recognize that we are not bystanders in history, but participants. That our choices matter. That our voices count. That our actions, however small, can contribute to something larger. When we feel this, we stop waiting for others to lead, and we start stepping into leadership ourselves. The greatest leaders know that people are capable of far more than they realize. Their speeches are not designed to give people power, but to reveal the power that was already there. They remind people that courage is already within them, that resilience is already within them, that hope is already within them. And when people realize this truth, they begin to act with a confidence that no outside force can take away. This is why the impact of a great speech often extends far beyond the moment it was delivered. People who heard it may have gone back to their daily lives, but they carried a new sense of belief into everything they did. They raised their children differently, they worked differently, they treated their communities differently. And as those ripples spread, society itself began to change. That's the hidden strength of words that awaken the best in us. They don't just inspire individuals, they shape generations. We all have moments when we doubt ourselves, when we feel small or powerless in the face of challenges. In those moments, the words that live within us become anchors. They remind us of our strength, our purpose, and our ability to make a difference. That's why we cling to the speeches that move us. They are not just history. They are fuel. They are light in times of darkness. They are reminders that inside each of us is the capacity for greatness, waiting to be called forth.